What up, everybody? How you guys doing tonight? Welcome back to another episode of Power Hour with your host or co-host here, Reese from House of Reps. So, first, I just want to wish everybody a happy New Year. We made it to another year. Congrats. So, I want to highlight one of our guests, though. We got a huge guest tonight coming on. Lots of good topics, lots of good stuff to talk about. Before we get into that, though, if you guys go to the description, there's a little recipe in there from Wildcard's tea. So check it out. I heard it's delicious. Haven't tried it yet, but I hear it's really good. So check that out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be right back.
Welcome in, everybody. How you doing, John?
Good. How's it going, guys? How you doing?
Pretty
Doing
good.
well, Reese.
What's up?
Welcome
I'm
back
good,
in, man.
bro.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and John too, man. What'd you guys do on New Year's? Anything fun?
Um, Not me, man. I was, my wife worked, so I just stayed home and did some kind of gaming with my kid, and just kept her up till midnight, which was wonderful for the next day. But yeah, what about you, John? What did you do during New Year?
Nothing here, man. Old man stuff. So just
I feel you. I didn't
watched
either.
a ball drop on TV and
I didn't either.
Same.
out. So not much. But
Yeah. So backtracking from New Year down to Christmas, we know that you are injured right now.
I
Is
just
this a
heard about
leopard gecko injury, or what were we doing?
oh, what was the story, man? I think I told you I was battling a grizzly, like saving a grandma or something. But
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
no, I
She's all
broke
right.
I broke a rib, man. So yeah, I've been kind of in pain last week or two, and it's been a little bit of a challenge. Sleeping's been the worst part. It's just hard to. It's not that
Yeah.
painful, but the sleeping is really tough. So
I gotcha.
was running around the house with some
Yeah.
dogs. So of all things, man, tell my
Well,
kids
we'll try
not.
to keep you from laughing, too much, because that sounds like it sucks. I've had a
That's not too bad. It's the
Right.
sneezing that's getting me now. Like if I ever
Oh.
sneeze, it's brutal. But yeah,
Man, I think I'd be drowning myself in those antihistamine pills just so I tried
Yeah.
not to.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I've bruised ribs before. This is a little different, but it's not too bad. I don't think it's like it's probably going to take me out for a couple weeks as far as the pain goes. But yeah, I think it's yeah, it'll heal up fine. I haven't gone to the doctor or anything, so it's
I
kind of
heard
a
what
way.
helps with it is some Wildcard tea. If you put that in your mug and drink it, it helps the ribs.
Yeah,
there you go. That actually
I'll try
helps
that
me
out.
sleep, and also anytime I'm sick. But I don't know about ribs, bro. That's kind of crazy. So you have a lot of animals, and obviously with your rib being broken, you've got to be struggling to keep up now. Is that working out for you? Are you able to keep on whatever?
Yeah,
routine?
I kind of was ahead a little bit before Christmas, and so I was okay for a few days there, and then I'm just getting by. I mean, I can do most of the stuff. It's kind of more like the bending down and picking up heavy stuff that's really hurts more, and
Yeah.
so getting mealworms ready and feeding is not too bad. After a long day, it's kind of hurt a little bit, but like I said, the sleeping has been the hardest part because I'm usually a side sleeper or a stomach sleeper, and it's just been
Yeah.
brutal every time I try to get on my side. So But
gotcha.
yeah, if I can get through the sleep, I think I'm all right.
Gotcha.
You got
Do you have an idea of how many leopard geckos you have now? Like how many you're cleaning up after?
I think I get asked this like every 5 or 6 months or so, and I just like never remember exactly what I say. But I think I have like 450 females or so, like breeder females, whatever that equates to. I don't breed them all though, so that's not exactly you know accurate to some collections and how many they're producing for babies and stuff. So I mean, it can range. Obviously, the seasons make the numbers go up quite a bit. So if all right now, I have quite a few babies on the ground, so maybe a couple thousand, but yeah, it's enough.
1,000?
Man, I
Yeah,
can
It's
only
all
take
it's
so many
all
off
you,
your
right?
hands, man. Wow.
yeah. Well,
Reese,
but
you had a question involved in there, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, it's all you. You don't usually have employees, right? So that's
I don't
insane.
ever have employees. I've never hired anybody to help me.
Yeah,
In the early days, my wife helped me a little bit, but um, uh, I'm too much of a control freak. I can't
yeah,
handle other people getting involved in my stuff. I'm very particular about how I do things. Most people can't probably handle the stuff that I do for a normal wage. So it's
yeah,
just, then you get people, disgruntled employees, whatever reason, and
yeah,
I've never looked at the business as so much like trying to expand and become the Bezos of the leopard gecko world. I'm just more about if you were starting off and you were picturing like what you wanted to do with the hobby or like how you wanted to go with it, you wouldn't really want to be a mass breeder that just
yeah.
produced like a mill style breeding setup. You'd want to produce the best stuff, produce highest quality. The numbers wouldn't be to that level. So I've never, once you start hiring employees, you kind of have to hire a few more, and it kind of goes from there. It's a snowball. So
So how many hours a day you say you would clean in? Because 1,000, just 1,000 is a lot. You said a couple, so I'm sure you get
yeah,
asked that too. But I mean, what are you in there 4 or 5 hours a day, or a full 8 hour workday, or
it varies, but usually a lot of it's based around my mealworm setup. So I'm, trying to get enough mealworms ready to go to feed. I'm very efficient about how I go through things. I have everything set up really quick and easy, and I can clean stuff really fast. The biggest issue is always having enough mealworms ready to go. So I try to get, usually I try to get 15, 20,000 mealworms a day set up every time I feed.
a
And I try to
day?
go through that every time I go. So I'll run through a couple tubs of mealworms, and I'm not doing that every day, but when I do, I try to do it all at once and just try to get a lot done quickly. So um,
Okay. Quick
yeah.
question here from Bayside. What happens when you keep too many holdbacks?
um,
So this is
yeah, this is a common problem with a lot of us. It's always having too many holdbacks. I usually just end up selling them. I'm at that point right now. You have a holdback, and then you get one that's a little better that's growing up. Just post it for sale, and usually they go pretty quick because that nice stuff is in demand. Um,
Yeah,
Sometimes I keep a couple back just in case. Like if I have a special project where I like have to have like a male for this situation, like um, I'm not going to just keep one male for that project only. I'm going to keep a couple at least. So
couple.
it's never bad to have a backup. But yeah, I don't like. I keep a lot more geckos than I actually breed every year. So every year I probably produce a lot less than people think, and um, I keep a lot more breeders than people think too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's the whole genetics library thing that everybody talks about, but that's really true here. I keep a lot of
I
stuff.
definitely have a small genetic library. The ones that I kind of have no intention of breeding for a while, but if I ever need them, I don't want to have to hunt them down and not be able to
Mhm.
find them. So those, I probably got a lot of them from you if I'm really thinking about it. But when it comes to the hobby and stuff like that, I've always been a tradesman, so I can't stop trying to come up with new kind of innovative ways to improve my area. And talking to you a little bit, I know that you have your own shop, and um, there's quite a bit of stuff going on in there that obviously is just kind of your own thought process. You kind of thought it up yourself for
Yeah,
innovation
the heated
towards keeping
floors.
leopard geckos. I was wondering if you might tell us, like, what size shop are you working with? Are you working with the whole thing, or what do you got going?
No, so I built my shop. I wanted to have like a normal shop part too, like for my tractor and other stuff.
Okay.
Like I have other hobbies as well. So like I wanted to have like a kind of a normal shop, and then I divided that. I put a partition between the gecko side and then the regular shop.
Okay.
And the gecko side's probably, I forget exactly the square footage, but it's a little bit over 1,000. I think it's like 1,100 or 1,200 square feet.
That's good.
Yeah. So, but it's really high. Like the eaves and everything are really high. I have a room built into it where I keep my feeders, and so and then on top of the room I have storage as well. So I have like a sectioned off area for the feeders, because I've always noticed in the past that the feeders, like if you try to keep that in your gecko room, it just creates massive allergy and dust problems. And so I really wanted to section that off and keep the ventilation. I constantly have a fan going out of the feeder room, so it's always got negative pressure pulling out, so it's never coming back into the gecko room. And in the past, I've kept them in the garage. So if you have like a normal house, a lot of times a good way to set it up is to put your geckos like in the basement or in rooms or whatever. Have fans going out as well, but for your feeders, you don't really want that in your house. So maybe in the garage, you can set up like a little. What I used to do is I used to set up like a little mini greenhouse in the garage and have like a little oil heater or something in there, and then put all my feeders in there. It just depends if you're breeding your feeders, how many you're keeping. For instance, right now, like my feeder room has my fridge, which I keep all my mealworms that are waiting to gut load and go. But normally I buy large mealworms, and then I gut load them like a day before and then feed them off. Rainbow's been out of larges for a really long time now, and so
Yeah.
I've had to go back to the like semi-breeding style where I'm keeping I'm growing up mediums until they're larges now. So I'm buying mediums from them, and then it's such a waste. If you're feeding off mediums to all your geckos, you're in trouble. You're going to waste so much money on that. So you can grow them up for a week or two and like almost add 30% to their size at least, and for a little bit of wheat bran and some carrots and some gut load, and you're go with that. But so the shop is it's kind of how I envisioned it. Not everything went exactly perfect, but I had a long time to think about how I wanted things and how I wanted them set up. And so on the geckos, I have underfloor heating, radiant hydronic floor heating. I have mini splits in there. I have an HRV ventilation system, which keeps the. I've talked about this on previous podcasts, but the ventilation is key when you're keeping a lot of animals in any situation. So an HRV system is really nice. If you're just venting to the outside all the time, you're just wasting all that heat energy, especially in the winter or summer. You're just wasting all that energy that you use to either cool or heat the place. If you use an HRV system, like my setup, it captures about 80% of the heat loss. So it basically uses it looks like a box on the side of the wall, and it mixes the air coming in with the air coming out, and it actually brings a lot of that heat back into the ventilation coming back into the room. So it's got a fan pumping out and a fan pumping in when they go through this box, and then they mix. And when it comes back in the room, it's not ice cold like this time of year. It's not ice cold, air coming in. It's taking all that heat that I'm losing when I ventilated it outside and exchanging it and bringing it back in. And there's two main systems. There's ERV and there's HRV. HRV you would use in drier climates, and ERV you'd probably use in more humid climates. So
that's more humid climate now.
Joe,
lot of
you're an
li-
HVAC guy. Do you got the same system?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said you're an HVAC guy. Do you have the same system?
No, it's like John was just saying. I'm in a more of a humid climate, so I would use a different system. I don't have it right now. I do have a humidifier that I put in on my air conditioner in general, just because the air inside the house, when you have a 90% furnace, it pulls it out. But that's completely different. You know, John, I was thinking this you have a side of your shop that is for your personal stuff, tractor, probably building, designing. Does the sound in there ever affect the geckos? Do you have tail drops because of a loud bang or anything like that,
um,
or is it usually even? Is it insulated?
the partition wall is insulated. I think it's. I mean, I think I went excess and I put like R20 in there or something like that.
Okay.
It didn't really need that much, but and it's traditional framing with drywall on both sides. So yeah, you're not going to have a problem with that. I mean, I run a vacuum in the shop all the time. The sounds like that are not going to drop tails for sure. The only times I see drop tails are either babies biting each other's tails off. You get a pinch somehow in a rack or a tub or something like that. Sometimes it can randomly happen, like if the tail gets the shed skin doesn't come off entirely, if the humidity's some issue with there, and then it kind of can dry out the tail. A lot of us have seen this at some point where the tip of the tail will start drying off and kind of get crusty. It's basically it's drying out, and then the gecko will usually pull it off themselves at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the drop tails from sound and stuff like that is pretty uncommon. I mean, I don't think I've ever even seen it once. So
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious. The reason I ask is I had one drop a tail. I've had her for a couple of years, and then she, all I did that I can think that, because of course I'm going to blame myself, but I vacuumed. There's carpet in this room. I thought about pulling it out for the smell, but um, if we were to lose power, I feel like it would help insulate for heat a little bit. So I left it in and just kind of keep it clean. But
yeah,
yeah,
I don't think
maybe.
that's it. I vacuum I actually in the shop. One of the things I set up was like a garage vacuum setup that's on a
Okay.
hose reel. And so I got a 50-foot line of hose vacuum that I just can run around the shop or run around the gecko room at any time to vacuum. So
Nice.
I'm constantly vacuuming in there, and I got a rack right next to that vacuum. It's a super loud one. I mean, it's the max you can kind of put in a garage under normal 120. So yeah,
That's got
I
to
don't
help
think.
with your allergies, right? The vacuum.
Yeah, I do as much as I can. I mean, I've been doing this long term already, and I don't want to be breathing that much dust in, and then also the smell and just the air quality. I just want it to be as quality as possible,
Yeah.
and so I use a lot of like from in different industries. You find something that's similar, like for instance, woodworking is kind of similar with the dust problems that they have in woodworking. So I use a lot of things from carpentry, and they have like I have mounted like these kind of ceiling filtration systems, but instead of like a small little HEPA system you'd use for your house, these are like high speed, like they're not getting HEPA like filtration, but they're getting all the like mealworm dust and all that kind of stuff and calcium powder dust and stuff like that. And I run those on the ceiling that are on remotes, and so I can run into the shop. And typically what I'll do is when I first get in the shop, I'll turn those on full blast. I'll turn up my HRV system full blast. I'll turn up my mealworm room exhaust fan full blast. And so I got everything good out of that shop before I really start working. And then I get my mealworms ready. And by the time I'm done with that, I turn all that stuff off because it's kind of loud, and I start working at that point. But at that point, I kind of cleared out the whole system and really have a nice air quality again. So
No, I wish, man, I had that set up. I have issues all the time here and there. I got to put on a mask, open the door. I keep a fan on too, but until I move and buy a house, I gotta kind of deal with this stuff.
what I
But
tell a lot of people to do with their temporary setups, and this is what I used to do, is just like put a window fan. If usually we have a window in whatever room we're in, whether it's a basement or extra
yeah,
room in the house, you probably have some window there, and
look
you
right
can
here.
set up just a regular window fan that'll expand to the size of your window, and then you can take the foam, like the 2-inch foam that you get from Home Depot, and like fill in the gaps and stuff, and then either use some like duct tape over it, or like any type of HRV HVAC tape around the edges and stuff like that. And you can keep that fan constantly flowing outside. And so what that's doing is it's pulling the air from your house, and it's constantly sucking it in and going outside. And that way your house isn't getting the gecko dust, mealworm dust, and all that other stuff.
The only thing I was worried about with that, because I did that for a little bit, was how open the fan is to letting bugs in through the fan.
You got to keep it on 24/7, and keep it just rolling. I mean, you can put a little screen on it if you really are worried about that. Most bugs are not going to be like able to, if you have that fan going like at least at medium pace, they're not going to really fly through that for the most part.
Makes sense.
They're going to get through the cracks in your house a lot easier than
that's
that.
The next project I'm going to do. Fix this window in the summer.
You want negative pressure in your room, basically. You always want air flowing into your room and then out the outside, constantly. There's a million different ways to set that up depending on your house. You can do, if you have no windows, you can set up, just spiral ducting through the basement or whatever, and out through a hole. And I rented for a long time, and I figured out ways to do it myself. So there's always a way to do it. But
yeah, I got, what do you call it? So ventilation is key. Obviously, when you have animals living in your house that emit odors, you have to do something about it, especially when because I keep them in my basement. So my family lives here, and if that smell were to travel to the house, that negative pressure helps a lot. It just sits there and works all day. Before mine is put up ahead in the ceiling before you get to the door where it would come out into the house. So that's what
I put it at the opposite side, so it kind of travels through the room and keeps, you want your geckos to be getting some fresh air as well too. So kind of keeps that flow going through the whole thing. So it's kind of the way I set it up. I set it up as far opposite side of the door to the room as possible. That way you got a constant flow through the whole thing. You don't have dead pockets and stuff like that. So
absolutely. And it's important for longevity too, because as humans, we can't sustain, putting, I remember recently I just stuck my hands in a thing of mealworms and took a photo, and I think Bubba kind of messaged me like, well, your life's over soon or something. Whatever he said, it was really funny, but he's right. You kind of feel the scratch, and if I'm going to be in here, I have to smell and, be able to breathe and have my allergies in check. Well, that sounds really cool, man. I like the idea of having 1,200 square feet of a shop.
I bet anybody does, dude. That's a wish list right there.
Yep. Yeah, I know.
But let's talk about the stuff you got in that building, though. Let's talk about the babies and the geckos and the projects. I know you got a lot of stuff over there, dude. One of my biggest things that I wanted to ask, I'm sure a lot of people want to know about it too, is about the Cipher stuff and the connection with Marble Eye. I know you said you're still like trying to figure it all out, but if you could help explain a little bit to us, for a lot of us that work with it and stuff.
So Cipher, for anybody that doesn't know, Cipher came out of my pure Marble Eye stuff. Mm-hmm. So I originally got Marble Eyes from Matt at Sasabek around 2010-ish. They all had Tremper in them, and one of my big goals at that time was to create pure Marble Eyes so I could add it to other albinos, Bell and Rainwater, and just have pure Marble Eyes. I was all into pure stuff back then. And so I actually hatched the original Het Cipher, like Marble Eye male, in 2012. I didn't actually hatch a Cipher though until 2015. And so it took that long to, I bred him to stuff and then back and forth. And I didn't know this stuff that it was in there at that time. So it didn't pop out until 2015. So I was always I just thought that Cipher was a separate gene, and that I would be able to separate Marble Eye from Cipher then at that point. And just like I did the Tremper, I literally separated Tremper from Marble Eye within 3 years. And so I
3 years.
mean,
Okay.
I did. I didn't get the testing and like for sure until a couple years later. But actually, the first male that was not het trimper was, you know, a couple years later. Um, so I wanted to do that with Cipher. I wanted pure ciphers. I didn't want to like have people mixing them with Eclipse, which is, you know, Eclipse is in everything out there now.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want that problem because the eye pigment, you know, conflicts there. And so, and I started producing Cipher males from the original groups, and they would have been like possible het marble eye at this point. And I would breed them to a marble eye, and I would produce more marble eyes. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not getting lucky yet. And so I got to a point that I tested out enough males like that. I'm like, I'm just going to keep this project going, and I'm going to breed the ciphers to like pure firebolts and pure tangerines and pure other stuff because I wanted to keep the project going. I wanted to add more color to them because marble eyes had, you know, mostly wild type blood in them. So they weren't really exciting, like as far as the background genetics. They really were like basic, like wild type, like genetics behind them. So to get that going, I started bringing them to Firebolt and Pure Bolds and other stuff. And so when I figured that once I produced a male, it was already going to be low possible het marble eye at that point. I'd be able to test it out. I'd finally get a male that was pure. I'd use that pure male to make everything else. Did that again, and you know, multiple males proved out when I'd breed them back to marble eye, they would produce more marble eyes. And I'm like, gosh, I'm getting like super unlucky here.
Yeah.
And so I did it again. And like, I mean, I'm talking about like multiple geckos that are like at most 33% pos het marble eye, proven out over and over. And one thing I was noticing is that, like, say I'd breed my Cipher to a rainwater albino that was not het Eclipse, of course, but for a rainwater or a Tremper or a Bell. And then I would take those hets and I would be trying to create like hit the odds and hit like a rainwater Cipher or a Bell Cipher or whatever. All the hets were not, or all the crossings of those hets together were not producing marble eyes. And so I was taking up like a pure Cipher or a Cipher, and I was breeding it to a non-het Cipher or marble eye. And I was getting these hets, and these hets weren't producing marble eyes. But every time I take one of the males from these groups, one of the Cipher males, and breed it back to a marble eye, it was producing more marble eyes. So my hypothesis at this point is either that I'm incredibly unlucky, like lottery level, as I put in my post that one time, or that somehow my theory is that basically that marble eye or Cipher is a mutated marble eye gene, that it is basically marble eye that's mutated into something else. And when it still interacts back with the marble eye though. So like Cipher is different than marble eye once separated, but it still will react with a marble eye when bred back. So if once you have a Cipher, that technically that would have both copies of the Cipher gene, you wouldn't have the mutated marble eye gene, which is the Cipher gene. And so when you have that, you wouldn't have that the original marble eye gene in there anymore. And if you bred that to wild types, or you bred that to pure genetics, like the Firebolt pure stuff, or anything that's pure, you would produce only Ciphers, basically, or hets for Ciphers, and not het for marble eyes. The confusion happens is when you take those Ciphers or whatever and you bring them back to marble eyes, because they still interact with the old marble eye gene, and they create marble eyes again. And so this is where I don't know absolutely for sure. It could be that the marble eye and the Cipher are locked in on the same chromosome. They're transferring together somehow, and that's what's causing it. It's possible. There's other reasons why I think that's not happening, but I think that at this point it's probably, I mean, if anybody doesn't know as well, Cipher has solid black eyes as well.
Yeah.
And so you can't see marble eye behind the Cipher. So if you had a marble eye Cipher, you would never know. You would just have to assume that the marble eye could be there. And so it's been a long road and kind of confusing and trying to
Yeah.
figure it out. And I mean, like I said, when I breed these heads together, it doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't produce marble eyes, though, like when breeding the heads. And then all of a sudden I breed that visual that came from those and it produces a marble eye. Or,
Yeah.
produces a marble eye when bred to a marble eye. So,
Yeah, and then out in the community, and even with the stuff I've had for a few years, same thing. I've never seen it. So I've never heard anybody else hit those odds. So I don't think it's an unlucky thing. I think it's close to what you're already on your way with and what you're thinking it is. A question that I get from a lot of people is, do you have future plans for Cipher? Is there anything in it that you would like to accomplish that we don't maybe know about that you don't mind sharing, or is it just
yeah,
something
Yeah.
testing it?
yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know if it's anything like a big secret or anything. I'm just adding it to other stuff. And I think from what I've seen with Cipher, I originally kind of thought that the bold stuff would be really good with it because, the stripe has always kind of been one of those things that fades with time. And I wish like a Cipher when it's young is amazing looking,
Yeah.
but a lot of times they will fade a little bit with time. And when they're older, they kind of become a patternless looking gecko. So maybe something similar to like what a Murphy patternless does. It looks really cool and weird when jungly and stuff when it's young, but obviously it fades to a patternless gecko when it's older. So I thought bold would keep a lot of that, and I found that maybe not so much. I still am trying some of that. I've seen some other people breeding them, which is great. I like to see other projects and seeing what happens. And some of the people have been producing some like gecko genetics, aka Mandarin stuff that's like crossed with Cipher that looks really cool. Some of the gem ciphers, I have a few of them myself that
Those
look
are
pretty
pretty
cool.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like gem in general just because you don't get the super out of it. So that's usually why I breed so many gems and less max. But yeah, there's many things. I continue with the firebolt stuff and see how that goes. Let's see what else I'm doing. A little still more with some white and yellow cipher stuff. I thought it would be a more interesting combination. I haven't been able to tell a lot of the white and yellows from the normal ciphers is easy. So I don't know if it interacts as well, but I've seen one guy in Europe produced one. And I thought it was, pretty obvious that it was a white and yellow. So I'm still going for that and seeing how it goes.
I actually just picked up one from you. That was a white and yellow het cipher. So I'll be trying to produce.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. You can definitely tell it on the heads. So
Oh yeah, she's definitely white and yellow.
I think it has to do with just the background genetics because I saw one in Europe that was clearly a white and yellow. It was like pretty obvious, and I think because the way the cipher, like it's a very diminished pattern and kind of like the way the head stamp is and stuff. It kind of looks almost white and yellow on its own sometimes, so it can be a little confusing to try to figure it out. I have a lot of them that I'm like white and yellow question mark on my label.
Yeah.
It's like I can't be for sure yet, but yeah, I mean, there's other stuff too. I think the most exciting thing that I've seen so far is the rainwater ciphers. They just, for whatever reason, I don't know why, rainwater is holding the pattern until maturity. So they're some of the nicest ciphers I've seen, and they've also, as adults, they're like got that backstripe still. So I'm really going to go for that rainwater cipher going forward. I think I sold one this year. I don't think I'm selling another one. But yeah, I think that's going to be a cool gecko in the future for sure.
Awesome. When it comes to let's see. So one of my biggest fears in the hobby with leopard geckos is that like somebody or myself will have something and they won't even know. It's just one of those things where I was kind of wondering what the wow moment was like when you found Cipher and you were like, this, I should test this. This is something. I'm not sure if I'm looking at something. Like what was that like for you? And kind of like just walk us through what you were doing so maybe we might catch it in ours if we ever see something, that mutates in our collection.
I mean, you kind of don't know sometimes, and like you can actually watch me kind of almost live reacting to the cipher. I have a video I know I
Okay.
don't use YouTube much anymore, but my YouTube channel that's, hasn't been used in 5 or probably 8, 9 years now. I think in 2015, when I posted that video of me hatching or the stuff in the incubator at that time was when I first saw the Cipher. And so
The
it was
link
kind of like,
too. Yeah, we have your link down there in the
oh, okay.
description.
Yeah,
So
I'm not active on YouTube anymore, but it's that's kind of my live reaction to it at that time.
okay.
So with something like that, it's like hopefully it works out. I don't know. I didn't know what to think at that time. It really, like, you don't expect if you're producing 500 geckos a year or 1,000 geckos a year, you never expect to be hatching out a base morph. Like, that's just the guys that hatch out base morphs are like the Max and uh, the big breeder, the multi, even the guys like that produce like 10,000, 20,000 don't produce you know base morphs like that. It's the guys producing 100,000. Like Gourmet Rodent hatched out the lemon frost, like, even, and that was a messed up gene, but still, like, that was somebody that's producing 100, 200,000 geckos a year. You don't expect it to. I mean, I could be doing this for 100 years and not expect to do it because they're doing that every year. So, most of the times you kind of think, this has got to be a fluke. The one thing about the Cipher was that, like, it hatched out, and, like, I saw it in a couple geckos right away. Like, it was recessive. Like, sometimes you just get one random gecko that looks weird or it's an oddball or whatever. But this one was like, it was either there or not on like I think I hatched 3 that first year in 2015.
Okay.
And the het was like just a regular banded gecko, like a wild type looking gecko. So to me, it was like, must be something, but I didn't want to get too ahead of myself, and I didn't know what to think, but that's,
Yeah.
just random odds and luck. And, most people will never do that, of course.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I fixed it.
So speaking of base morphs, I kind of wanted to go into a topic that I know you personally have spent a lot of time thinking about. But before I did that, open up to the comments. Anybody that has a Cipher question that maybe we didn't touch on. I'm not trying to commandeer all of John's time on one topic. Please ask the questions, and we can, ask them live. But when it comes to titles, on Morph Market or when you're selling, listing ads, your descriptors, how there's little terms here like name stacking, showboating, and things like that. And I know that's something that you talk about here and there, and you're sort of passionate about. How much time would you say you've spent thinking about that subject alone? And then,
It kind of drives me crazy every week, and I don't know if I'm thinking about it all the time.
yeah,
Where I'm at now, I try to separate myself from the geckos all the time. Like, even when I do a podcast like this, I gotta, like, go back and, like, read history about stuff and, like, remember what was, because you forget a lot of that stuff, and if you're not constantly thinking about it, you kind of lose it. So, I don't know if when I go to sell stuff, I think a lot of people are feeling this frustration. It's like, it's sort of shady to start stacking names like one after another, like, of these marketing names. And I'm not calling people out that do it. I'm saying I think a lot of people have just learned that's the way to do it, or that's how the leopard gecko game is done.
Yeah, I mean, if you scroll down Morph Market and just look at that for your own research without talking to anybody, yeah, you would assume that
Mm-hmm.
that's just how you would label, for people that don't have a network of people to confirm or talk to. So, yeah.
And I want to emphasize that I'm not calling people out on this, like, necessarily. I'm, like, kind of doing it myself, even, because if you don't do it, you're not going to sell. Like, if I post my Tangerine Bold or whatever it is next to the person putting Firebolt, Bandit, Red Diamond Cross, I'm never going to sell my gecko over them at the same price.
Yeah.
All things considered equal, like the pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of been a race to the bottom with this lately, especially, back in the day, it was like you'd post on your website and you'd post on Facebook, and everybody was kind of separated. But now that we're on, Morph Market's become like one of the main platforms for selling geckos, especially for people entering the hobby. They're getting compared to the next picture over to them, and so you could literally have the same exact gecko, but like that new person that just got in the hobby last week is going to buy the crazy looking or the crazy sounding name over the tangerine bowl. It doesn't sound fun.
The ninja trapeze unicorn.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we had two questions from the group about ciphers. One was Junior here. How do you feel about Eclipse mixture? Because there's a lot of people doing it for whatever reason. So, have you heard of anybody mixing Eclipse? How do you feel about them mixing it?
If you did it before then, you were kind of being shady because we didn't know. I don't think we know for sure yet, so I'm not doing it. I think if Cipher is just Cipher and not like it's separated from Marbleeye like I think it is, I think if you breed it to Eclipse, it's similar to like breeding Eclipse to Super Snow, and we can, you can parse it out that way and figure it out. But I don't know for sure if I'm right, so I'm not doing it, and I don't think it should be done yet. Like I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm just like, sharing my, experience, and I know it's taken a long time. Everybody's in a rush in leopard geckos, but like, some of these things take years and years and years to figure it out. So
no, that's true, because I look at a lot of your work. Most of it is from 10, 15 years ago, and people still use it today to do stuff. So it's still work being done. So another question we had here, is there any dark black knight ciphers that you know of?
Or melanistic in general. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am working on that. I haven't hatched out a visual yet. Unfortunately, I got kind of unlucky with that, but I should probably this year. I can't imagine I don't. I almost can't believe I didn't this year, but yeah, I have some black knights that I keep around just as like cross stuff. Like, so I cross them into other things. I don't really like to breed pure black knights, and I won't ever sell them because I think they're, a defective morph.
Yeah.
But black knights serve their purpose and for modern breeders because they really carry strong genetics. So if you cross them into something and you get a really, if you're selective and you find a black knight that's actually healthy, it can be a gold mine for you because it's like a really, a powerful genetic that you can add into other stuff. And you cross like a really nice black knight into something else and then make the crosses back and forth. Like I did that with Firebulls, and I produced my favorite gecko this last season that way.
Dude.
That's
now they're posted.
Yeah, I posted it a few times. I'm kind of obsessed with that one gecko.
No, I love that gecko. I think I just shared it last night too. I love that gecko.
I'm not even. It's wild in person too. I've never seen anything like it. And I've seen most things in person, and that thing is, it's a whole new level. There, a lot of most of them from that cross have been pretty cool. A lot of them have been a little bit more yellow looking. Yeah, that one. That's kind of that's it.
Right here?
People think that picture is like edited or something weird. I'm not. That gecko is crazy in person. Like, yeah, you can only imagine that on a weird iPhone filter or something.
No, that gecko is
weird guy, wildcard geckos in his potty mouth over here. Holy shit, dude.
There's children on this channel, buddy.
I know.
I know.
Guys everywhere.
But yeah, no, that is a pretty insane animal too. I was looking at it.
You can go down a little bit more, and there's one closer to when it hatched. It's still wild now. I looked at it the other day. I just don't like posting it too much. I almost want to keep taking pictures. Not that one. That one's another one that's really nice from that project. But
that one right there.
It's the one on the leaf is it as well. And then there's another one down below where it's really a lot younger. So it's been nice all along. So that's the same gecko in all three of those pictures.
Yeah. No, that gecko
it's pretty wild.
A couple of the other ones were like that other one you clicked on, where they're a little bit less orange and bright. And like that one, they're a little bit more like dark muddy color, like you'd kind of expect with like more of the Fireball Black Knight stuff. Like I'd expect that kind of more from that stuff, but Yeah, that's a nice gecko too, though. That's what kind of the stuff I'm going to probably be breeding to that female and see what happens. So,
So
a
Right
that's
good
one of the
thing.
projects you're working on this season.
That's one I'm excited about.
Nice.
There was the rainwater stuff. I think I'm seeing a lot of potential. A lot of this rainwater stuff that I'm hatching out. The firebolt stuff is crossed out. I kind of realized how much potential it had when I started seeing some of the white and yellows that came from it. Um, but that if you go back to the Instagram page, there's a head on there that kind of even. It's one of the nicest geckos in person I've ever seen. It's right above that. The one we were just looking right next to like the Tangela looking one with the bands to the right. It's a tangerine stripe. Yeah, that one. That's actually het rainwater. That comes out of the firewater stuff. And yeah, that thing is incredible in person too.
it's extremely yeah.
Yeah, it's weird looking kind of. I don't even know how it got that nice. It doesn't make sense. I keep looking at it. I'm like, did I get this mixed up with something? But I don't even know if anything I have that like looks like it doesn't look like my emerald stuff or anything either. So
Have you photographed it since? It's been about what, 7 weeks?
yeah, I did. I didn't post it though. I need to post more. Like I honestly photograph a lot of stuff and I don't end up posting it. But I mean, I don't think it looked too much different when I photographed it again. And I just didn't, I kind of want to post it for stuff because I got a lot of different projects and stuff and try to keep it diverse on there. But
I got you.
I did want to know about one gecko in particular. You posted a baby of it. Let me see if you could see it, Joe. Kind of had like a pink neck, but like a black and white body.
oh, I know what you're talking
You know
about.
what I'm talking about? Yeah, I was looking at that last night, wondering if you had an update on that one, or if you could post this.
Yeah, it doesn't look as cool as it did then. It's still
Or-
really cool looking. That whole neck and head thing filled out. And I mean, I was kind of keeping it secret back then what it was, but it comes out of the rainwater stuff as well. The firebolt rainwater. You go up, it's a little bit up. It's right there.
Yep, right
That
above.
baby.
Yep, in the middle.
In the middle?
Yep,
Yeah,
that
right
one.
there.
Oh, yeah.
That one. The
Yeah,
head complete.
that one stands out to me. I don't know why.
It's one of the. I mean, this is one way you can kind of see potentials in projects is you see weird things like this pop out, and this comes out of the same groups and stuff as that you saw with that last one we just looked at too. Like that's how weird like some of the stuff is coming out, and so that's why I'm kind of excited about it because there's a lot of interesting things coming out of it, and I feel like the power of those genetics is going to be really strong going forward. The white and yellow snow rainwaters that came out of it from last year were just insane. They were just, I couldn't believe how nice they were in person. There's some of them way down the Instagram too, if you want to look. But
that one caught my eye. I was like, what in the hell is this?
Well, speaking of projects and stuff, a lot of people here want to know the difference or just, I guess, your thoughts on the desert bold and the cinnamon and the differences and what's Tremper, what's not Tremper. Personally have no opinion because I work with neither. So I don't work with it. I don't know nothing about it, but I see it a lot. People ask about it a lot, but it's not something, like I said, I could speak on. So, like I said, a lot of people here wanted to know about it. So if you had any thoughts, could you share them?
yeah, so the original cinnamon, quote unquote, I got. It wasn't directly through Tremper, but it was offspring from a guy in Europe that bought them directly from Tremper. And they were. It was a back then. It was supposed to be a cinnamon bowl, like het Tremper, I guess, at that point. And I didn't know what to think about it. This is what is this 2016 or something like that. This was a long time ago. I had this gecko, so I didn't know what to think about it. He's a really cool looking gecko, and so I just was like, all right, we'll see what happens. And I started hatching out like these really brown looking like bolds, and they would come out like one would be brown and one would be normal black colored. And they definitely weren't albino. I'd hatch albinos out of the same group and they'd be like really white and like, light colored and stuff. And so I'm like, I didn't know what to think of it. I was like, okay, this makes sense. This is what the cinnamon is. This is cool. I didn't know like exactly what was going on there. And I mean, I didn't really focus too much on it because it was kind of Ron Trimper's project. It was kind of like, okay, this is known. This is already a genetic that people know about. It's cool looking, but, still don't understand it completely. I don't know how it's working. And then, fast forward, I think last year or more that people were, saying that the non-albinos were not cinnamons because Ron Trimper's original explanation said that cinnamons had to be the albino version. And I spent a long time on the phone with Ron about it because I've hatched like brown or dark looking Trimper albinos before. And I've just hatched them randomly out of a lot of different projects. And it's kind of a common thing that ends up happening is that you get these brown or dark Trimpers. And I've never had really like the bulbs like turn brown. Like they're very much not albino. They're very obviously not albino.
Okay.
I think some people like there's some eclipse involved in some of these where I think people are getting confused because they're seeing the white eyes from that. They're kind of like the clear eye eclipse or Abyssinian eclipse kind of thing going on. So they're getting confused. But and then there's also these albinos that are looking dark too. So there's kind of like, it's questionable if some are albino and some are not, I guess, with some people. So
Yeah.
I talked to Trimper for a long time on it, and I was like, dude, I hatch these out of your stuff. Like, this is what I'm seeing is, cinnamon banded or cinnamon bold, whatever you say. And I guess somebody else was talking to him too at the same time, claiming that everybody else's weren't cinnamons. And, so he ended up clarifying and saying, yeah, they absolutely have to be albino. And so I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not going to call them cinnamons if you claim that they're not all albino, no matter what. And so I think it was BM Geckos that I was talking to, Brett over there. He was talking to me and he was like, I had sold him some at that point, and he was like, let's, I was thinking about naming them Cinnamon Bandits or something like that. That'd be a cool name. And I'm like, or not Cinnamon Bandits, Desert Bandits. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. I mean, I'll just call them Desert Bolds because they're not pure bandits anymore. I think bandit is a line. And so I've been calling the non-albinos that I've been hatching out Desert Bolds at this point. I don't know how they work yet still to this day. They're not dominant from what I've seen this year. I've, definitely tested them against like extreme bold stuff that I have that's 100% not het for anything. And they don't come out looking, like the deserts that or cinnamons that I've seen before. I'm sort of kind of feeling like there's something to do with eclipse now, just because I know eclipse, like if you get like a head even eclipse, you can sometimes get a weird brown color no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's what's going on or if it's somehow interacting with Trimper albino. It could be something where it's similar like to the Cipher where they're allelic and they're actually on the same locus in the genome, or they're actually, they're when they're working together, they create this different thing. There's a similar thing that happens with paradigm boa constrictors, where you have like boa women caramel and you have sharp albino, but when you breed them together, you can produce this animal that's got both from they're different genes, but they're on the same locus, so they're interacting with each other in a different way, and it creates a different looking animal. And so it gets a little complicated at that point. Like, is it maybe doing that with albino and it's creating a different look for like a cross with albino, or is it doing that maybe with eclipse, or maybe are they some like variation of eclipse or something? They don't know yet. So it's confusing.
No, so that brings me to a point while you're talking. I was thinking about it. Like leopard geckos breed so fast, they reproduce quickly. We can do a lot with them. But with so much time and so many people working on stuff, we still are uneducated or not have all the knowledge to why some of these things are the way they work or how they work and interact with each other. Do you have a thought on that of like why we still like after 20 years of breeding certain things, 15 years of breeding certain things, how we still don't know how they work? Maybe people just dropping off of projects and then people rebuilding from the ground up, or like what do you think is why we're not ahead on certain stuff?
I know
I
the
think
answer.
I think most of the things we know, but I mean, we figured out quite a bit. There's some of these things are just confusing. Like, I mean, that desert bolting is really confusing. And like, trust me, it's not something you figure out overnight with that. No matter how many, you can go through. I've had them for a while now, and I still don't know for sure. I have, granted, I haven't devoted much of my time to it. I always thought it was Ron Trimper's project, and like we knew what was going on over there, and other people were working on it. So it wasn't like ciphers were much higher priority for a long time. So I was just kind of breeding them and producing them. I thought they looked cool, and I was telling people this is a cinnamon bandit or whatever. This is what Ron Trimper said they were, and they look great. I didn't feel like it was my calling to figure that out. Now that it's, I mean, after talking to him, he just doesn't understand even what's going on with my stuff. And so now, like, maybe if that's something new that's going on now, I'm a little more interested in it. But there's enough people working with him now, too, that, we'll get notes from other people. And
we'll get to the bottom of it soon.
I mean, I'm sure in the next 5 years it'll figure it out. But,
nice.
Yeah, I kind of like it when stuff pops up with, genes we've been working with for a while and we don't know the answers to it. I think it keeps the hobby exciting. It makes you want to, try stuff out, help. Probably a really good idea, John, would be for you to set up leopard gecko camps in other people's hobbies rooms and say, hey, I need you to put 4 racks aside for me, and I'm going to tell you what to pair so I don't have to deal with it. And then just have them send you the pictures, the notes, everything, but you don't have to work on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that goes back to my micromanaging. I wouldn't be able to handle it. So I would be like, these pictures look weird. I can't tell. Or
I feel like we could even like right here on the podcast, we can call out like Bubba, Brett. Those guys have to do it, right? I know Dogtown's. What isn't he doing something soon? Maybe he should not do that and do this instead, so we can have these people just work under you, for free, guys. It's for science.
Bunch of Gecko Boa franchises everywhere.
Yeah, there you go.
The projects,
pretty awesome. See, I want to experiment too. Brad always wants a piece of everything. That guy.
He just needs more bull snakes.
I want to get back in a minute to the obviously what we talked about a minute ago with titling animals. But before I do that, just kind of keep it interesting. I was wondering to highlight, Gecko Boa. I was wondering if you could tell us something involving your hobby that that nobody knows, but it's kind of like a thing that we would enjoy hearing. Something that you, I don't know, like, love, saw, whatever. Something that maybe the hobby doesn't know that's positive.
I've been pretty open about most things, I think. I think maybe just going back to, I think a lot of people that don't want to do this as like a mill breeder, and I think most of us are like that.
Yeah.
Keep more breeders than you do like the babies, like just don't produce as much. Like a lot of people think that I'm producing 2,000 a year or something like that. And it's like, no way, I think the most I ever produced was like 1,700 in like 2017, and I'll never do it again. I try to strive for 800 or less usually. And a lot of people think I'd produce a lot more than that. Granted, I don't do shows really. So, there's less of the wholesale aspect. Or lower end stuff that I'm selling, but I would say keep more breeders and keep that genetics library open. That's going to keep it fun for you. You're going to have more options when you see something cool online and you don't have to go buy it every time that you need something new. I mean, it's fun to buy, of course, but if you have a lot of stuff on the shelf that you can just pull out and, be creative, you gotta, it's like an artist, like with their canvas there sitting there with only 10 colors of paint. Like you can mix and figure it out, but it's going to take, a lot of mixing to figure it out. When you have like everything at your disposal right there to create whatever you want at any time, you can let your creative side go, and, that's kind of like I have all kinds of things that I probably haven't even bred in 5-6 years that, I could just pull out of nowhere and try it again. And, Um, I would just say like that's a better way to go about it. Like if you want to keep a lot of stuff and keep it fun and exciting at this level or a bigger level, it's just keep some extra stuff and um, have that at your disposal when you need it. You know, produce
Yeah.
less. We don't need 1,000 of the same exact thing.
No,
We a
I say
lot.
that to people all the time to think of other projects. Everybody
Uh,
wants to cross the same stuff. I'm like, cross it with something you haven't seen or heard of. Do something else.
a lot of people want to do the cookie cutter, like, oh, he sold red diamonds for 600-700 bucks a pop. If I have two females, I'm gonna, do the math. It doesn't work that way. You destroy your own market really quickly. And I don't, even when like some of that stuff is, going strong, I don't try to overproduce it because I mean, I'm only hurting like, not only am I hurting like my market, I'm hurting my customers' market too. So I think, like, how would you feel if you bought a rainwater cipher like for 1,500 bucks or whatever I sold it for, and then I sold 20 the next week, like at
Yeah.
1,000 or whatever. It's one of those things where
Like,
Yeah.
people,
hey, you send me like $200 more?
yeah. So
Exactly how you feel when you invest in anything, and then 2 years later, someone comes along and they just throw it out there for almost nothing, and you just want to like,
And that's the
you know,
thing that I hate too. Is like a lot of the cipher stuff. Is a lot of people got them, and like people have this weird thing in the hobby where if I don't sell it within a month, I have to drop the price by 50%. And it's like, how many geckos I sit on for months and months because I'm not going to drop their price in half just because I sit on it that long.
yeah.
Even in a bad economy, like the stuff ends up selling at some point. A lot of
And
people
it takes a minute
realize.
to in the tub. It's space. I get it, but it takes a minute. So
Yeah, but you hurt not only your reputation because people are pissed at you because you're doing that, and then I mean your customer base that you sold that to already.
all right,
The whole hobby is just it's like you know they're like if it doesn't sell instantly, I have to sell it for cheaper. And I wish people would realize that, like, for instance, I've had purple heads on the market for a couple months now, and then all of a sudden somebody posts something, or I always see this too, like something happens in out there in the ether, and all of a sudden these geckos are in high demand, and like all of a sudden
Yeah.
I sell 4 or 5 of them at once. Like purple heads were nothing, and then I sell 4 or 5 of them at once.
yeah.
And it sometimes it's like somebody was posting them cheap, or like you know all of a sudden somebody makes a post and like shows a really nice one. I don't know what it is, but you know
Yeah.
it's nice to have a little diversity with that stuff, and then also just keep it ready to go. It'll sell at some point.
A lot of the stuff that I do that with, man, I honestly, by the time I realize I haven't sold it, I want to pair it because it just looks better, or I have an idea, or it's they don't have to leave. It's just they're here, and um, yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of just I do have that genetic library thing going on, but they're not a burden, so I'm good. I got the space, I got what I want to work with. I have things that are not here in my genetic library, and I'm happy with that because I know they're in other places. But yeah, I feel you on that. Getting obviously over back to just circling back to the titling, descriptors, name stacking, and whatnot. What kind of a solution would you say would we could do to maybe maybe an education on base morphs or something like that, or communicate with people to fix titling and
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we didn't finish the morph market conversation. Really, the I think when we have everybody next to each other, I think this is a good opportunity. And I made a post about name stacking, and for people that don't know what name stacking is, that's like when you breed a it's not just a tangerine to a tangerine bowl or a bold or something like that and calling it tangerine bold. It's when you actually take quote unquote lines or projects and you breed one to the other, and say you bred a firebolt to a red diamond, or you bred a crown to an inferno, or whatever it is, and you call it Clown Inferno. And I'm not, again, emphasizing I'm not hating on people that do this already. I
Yeah,
really, this is education, if anything, or just, we need to adjust the hobby at some point. So if you call something, those things, like those mean really nothing. They're just lines that people have made up. They're basically
yeah.
marketing names. They're fancy names that people have created to sell more geckos. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's just a tangerine at the end of the day, or a
It's a
cross.
tangerine at the end of the day, and it's, the usefulness of it is that maybe what genetics or lines it comes from, so you can match. Say if somebody had a tangerine that they put in the title, and in the description they put tangerine inferno clown or whatever,
Yeah.
or clown inferno, whatever. I could say, well, I have this tangerine inferno, the crossover here, or clown inferno crossover here, and I could breed those together, and maybe the genetics mash up, and I would produce something cool, because some of that stuff you don't want to necessarily inbreed, but you do want to cross alleles, and you want to make things create better colors, because you're inbreeding to some extent. That's how we get all these crazy colors.
Yeah.
So it's good to know some of that stuff and to be able to track it to some extent, but it's gotten to the point where it's been a marketing gimmick, and it's been, everybody, one person creates a line, and then the next person does. And like pretty soon people are just crossing one generation, and they're creating a line, and they're calling it a new project. And, for someone like me, that's been like, I won't even name most of my projects, even after 10 years or so. Like,
Yeah.
and then I'm almost forced into it. Like even the Monarch stuff, like I was kind of forced into it, because I knew like this gecko was special, and I didn't really want to name it, but I had customers starting to call it something, and I had people that were saying, wow, this is incredible. And I just knew that somebody was going to cross it to something else, and call it a new line.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get forced into this pit of marketing. And anybody knows, like, I rarely name anything. Like almost everything that I've named myself, like I just go with the basics on it. Like lavender fireball, for instance, was something I started crossing from like since 2013 into firebolts. And like I created that. I didn't call it something new really. I just called it kind of what it basically was. But stuff that like actually came up with a new name, like Purple Head, was, that was literally Matt on the phone with me,
Yeah.
saying, well, what's up with those purple head geckos? Like, what are you doing with those, or something like that? And like, I just started kind of saying that, like, those purple head ones that I was showing you, or something like that. And that's where purple head comes from. It doesn't come from like they have a purple head, although some of them did.
Well, at hatch, sometimes they kind of do, because I was
Yeah.
confused at it. I was like, "There's no purple here. What is the name for?" And then when I hatched some, I was like, "Oh, there's a little
Yeah.
period of time where that top of the head is pretty purple," and you're like, "Okay."
It can be, but when you're talking about like, lines like that, like for instance, white and yellow is not white and yellow, necessarily. Purple head just came from that. It came from like kind of the original geckos showing a lot of that. And some of them do have purple head, some of them don't. Some of them are kind of hypoed out when they get older. Doesn't mean they're not the purple head line. So I don't know where I was going with this, but basically with all these different lines that are out there on morph market, when we're stacking these names, and new people are coming into this hobby and seeing this, they have no idea where to go, because it's even confusing me now. I've been doing this for 16 years or so, like full time as a gecko breeder, and I still look at morph market and I'm like, what's that? This is
Yeah.
confusing to me. Like, makes no sense. And so it's kind of become a race to the bottom. I think the way forward, and I'm just putting this out there, I'm just kind of planting the seed for the community at this point. I don't want to be the arbiter of everything gecko related or whatever.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
I think for most ethical breeders, it would be a good world if we went to Morph Market and we posted our geckos in the title as what they were exactly. Like, is the line stuff, So base morph for all these tendering lines would be tendering. Like, so if you had Clown Inferno, whatever, if it was a tendering by base morph, like the morph itself, you would say tendering. And then in the description, you can go ahead and stack your names all you want. You can go ahead and put whatever you want in the bottom. So in the title, you wouldn't put Clown Inferno, Joker, Blood, whatever. You would put Tangerine. And I would also put Tangerine because all this
Yeah.
stuff comes from nice lines. Like nobody's breeding, crappy stuff anymore. Everybody's breeding nice stuff. And so, like, if I stacked the names, like, it would just go on forever on a lot of this stuff. And they're not dominant; they're just lines that are just marketing names. So if we just put Tangerine and we put all the base morphs, like, so if you had a bold in there, like this would affect me as well. Like if I had a fire bold, I would put Tangerine bold, and I would say from 100 in the description, I would put from fire bold lines.
Yeah.
Or if I had a Tangerine bold Tremper, I would just put that in the title, and then I'd write the lines in the description. And so there's some shady people that are literally stacking 4 or 5 names and just calling it that.
Yeah.
And there's people that are putting like the crosses. They're putting like Red Diamond times Firebolt times Clown or whatever. They're putting that in the description. At least that's a little more ethical in that way. And then then there's other people that are doing that are saying Tangerine or Firebolt, Red Diamond, Tangerine Tremper or whatever in the description. So there's all these different levels of ethics, quote unquote. But if we all had a base standard of naming the morph exactly the way it is in the description, no marketing names, no line names. And then in the description we'd put exactly what lines we wanted to put in there, and we could do whatever we want.
I have an idea. You have obviously a pretty extensive page, and I think we have to get over to it. Let's see. So I spent a lot of time here. I'm sure a lot of people do. But if you go to your resources, not the care sheet, go to the genetics page here.
Yeah.
Oh, you changed it.
If you go up.
Okay.
Go up.
Okay. I see what happened. So just like this, what
like there, right there. So if you see here the line bred polygenic morphs, I put like the first. You're moving around too much. If you put like the combos, go up to the morphs, not the combos. You moved.
Sorry.
Should go up. Okay, there. That's good.
Okay.
So the main points are what they are, and then in the bulleted points are like the lines. So I mean, the hypo and super hypo you kind of can ignore, and the baldy and all that stuff we don't really use that much anymore. But say for instance, like under Tangerine, there's all these different lines. There's blood, there's just black blood, there's electric, there's Gecko genetics, Mandarin, Torrid, whatever. All these Torrid, like atomic, all this other stuff. This is stuff that goes in the description. Tangerine goes into the title of the animal. You could put, if you go down a little bit, Emerine would go in the title. So that would be like your clowns and all the other like types of Emerines, which are like Tangerines that are bred to have some more green colors to them. So you would obviously put like things like bold would be in the title. You wouldn't put bandit. Bandit's a line. You wouldn't put hauling mass. That's a line. All these other ones would be lines. Firebold would be a line of Tangerine bold. And then you would have lavender. It could be in the description or in the title. You could have obviously any of the real base morphs, like the recessive morphs, like Eclipse or Tremper, Rainwater. All that stuff would be in the title. But all the line bred stuff would have basically. You could have stuff like jungle and striped and all that stuff. But all the other stuff, all the names that we just created out of nowhere that mean nothing really, besides what line they're from, that stuff would go in the description. And I think that's the way forward because, honestly, like you could try to put the crosses and stuff up there all you want. and that's going to try to help you sell. Like I do that now because otherwise I don't sell. And I think everybody's feeling that pressure as well.
Yeah.
It was so I for anybody that's disagreeing with me or thinks this is a bad idea, I just try to imagine a world where everybody had the same standard on that. And that was, instead of putting clown, they would put emarine. And then it would also make it easier for beginners. Like if you were able to compare 10 emarines together, you'd actually be comparing the quality of the animal rather than what names were, fancy names came up for them.
I've been thinking about that one for a while, the emarine one. My idea was up here, where you have your resources. You should have a page and spend some time with it, with maybe some ideas on base morphs, and then throw the examples underneath it, almost like, I don't know, semi bullet points. They won't look like this. It'll be a little less than this, but because it won't have descriptions, just, emarine, and then everything you consider, emarine right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so titling and things like that, maybe you can even underneath throw some examples.
I would make this cleaner if my website allowed me to. Like I'd make it where it expanded out and stuff, but I'm kind of limited on that. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It would make it a little easier to follow if you did that.
Yeah.
But when I posted my post about stacking morph names last summer, Darian actually came out and said, like, he was kind of open to it. He said, like, let's let me know who's doing this, and we'll figure. I don't know what he was saying. Yeah, like I don't want that to happen because I think everybody's doing it right now, and I think it just needs to be a general shift of the hobby, rather than just canceling people. I don't think that's right. But if we could have it where that description didn't let you put other names other than the actual names that should be in the title of a gecko, like the actual morphs and stuff, and it would be good. And then if like there was a new morph, obviously like Cipher came out. That's obviously a new morph, a new recessive. Yeah. That's something new you would add there. But
because the genes are automatic, but the you think of an emarine, that's not it just means green. So the ones that are going for the greens, that would be the base morph name, but also that kind of goes in with tangerine, but still it's tangerine, but it's the green direction. So to me, I like that. But like you said, the second, all of us get on that train, there's going to be those that don't do it, and that's where all the animals are going to fly off the page. And so the rest of us are, that are trying to breed and
it can't go that way. It has to be something where it has to be built into the system on Morph Market. So it would have to be that.
Yeah, like a drop down where only tangerine. It's either tangerine or like he's saying. So you only have limited option to put the title.
Yeah, and it needs to be in the title. It can't be in like the traits that they put there because even the traits are all messed up too. Like, it doesn't even give you an option for melanistic. Like, it gives you, that needs to be fixed as well. Like everybody, you can't put Black Knight, or Max Snow Black Knight because that's not a thing that exists in the world. Like if you see Black Knight Het Trimper, that doesn't exist in the world. It's a cross, at that point. It's a melanistic at that point. People like to put fancy names. They want to put melanist or Black Knight or Black Pearl or Koya or whatever they want to put on it because they want to sell more. And so it needs to be a standard that if you have a Black Knight that you're posting, even if it's pure or if it's a cross, you put melanistic. Then the line in the description you can write pure 100% Black Knight lineage, or this is a cross or whatever. Another advantage to all this too is it's going to keep people, like honest people, from inbreeding quite so much. If you think about Black Knights, like I think they're 20 generations in of inbreeding. Probably more than that now. Like it was like 15 years when he released it, so it's got to be way more than that.
F-15s, definitely they're F-15s.
Yeah, it's crazy now how much inbreeding has gone on, and what happens is like people will they'll buy the darkest ones they can. Usually, a lot of the darkest ones are siblings or closely related, and you sell those siblings to somebody in the U.S., for instance, and that person breeds them and sells those as pairs to breed for somebody else. and they breed those pairs. I mean, you're just inbreeding to the max at that point, and it's all in the name of keeping it pure. And the same thing happened to, Halloween Mask has a similar problem, and even all of them pretty much have a similar problem at some point, especially if people buy like just a pair from somebody and then they sell, like if somebody buys a purple head pair from me, they may be okay to breed from me, but I wouldn't sell the babies from those to breed as a pair. Like I would tell you to probably outcross them with something else. But if I sell them to somebody else and they sell it to another customer as a pair, and then that person buys them, sells them as a pair, like it really gets inbred really quick, like to a point like you wouldn't want. So I would prefer that people were outcrossing purple head to other stuff and not worrying about being pure purple head or whatever. And that,
because
I mean,
it's
that affects
strong.
me.
It's strong anyway, dude. When you cross it, the crosses look like purple head. You know what I mean?
I
So
am
it's already
careful.
strong. I think it's good to outcross it.
I'm careful what I put purple head into because of what it's going to do. Yeah, it's going to take over the look almost. It's a really strong gene.
But
Whatever.
I had something to touch on where I think a lot of labeling is messed up as well for new people and even people that aren't so new. I think it's a lot of lack of research on how the genes work. So like a lot of people don't understand. Like you said, if you take this and you take this and cross it, they think it's both when in actuality it's neither. And so I just think a lot of people need to look more and do some more research on how the genes work, what the genes do, where the lines come from, and understand the difference between lines and recessives and and all that good stuff. And I don't think a lot of people take the time to research that and look into it, and
There could
therefore
be a
the
lack of
labeling
source
gets messed up.
material
Yeah.
on that too. But yeah,
Well, kind of, but not really, because I went through that struggle. And if you look at my morph market, I have stuff like tangerine stripe, het bell, and then in the descriptor, I'll tell you just like how John said what the line
yeah,
was. I went through trial and error. Hey, is this high contrast? No, it's not from that line. So I went through all that stuff too, but I had to ask those questions to make sure. A lot of people don't even care to ask the question. They're just like, well, he did it, so I could do it. I didn't care whether he did it or he did it. I just want to make sure I was doing what I was doing correctly. So I think a lot of people don't take the time to really understand what the genes do and how they act.
yeah.
So that's something to think about.
That's a good point. It's definitely something we can improve on. But I did like the idea because I know a lot of us spend a lot of time on your website, John.
Dang, did we lose Joe?
Oh, is he gone?
He froze up, dude. That's a first. It's usually everybody else that freezes up and he gets all upset. Now we could blame him.
Yeah, he's frozen on mine.
Yeah, no, he's frozen here too. He'll figure it out. But while he's gone, I know he wanted to move on to the Monarch stuff. And if you wanted to talk about that, a lot of people still wondering about that. I know it's fairly new, right? It's only been out 2 years maybe, or a year.
Well, so Monarch is, I touched on it a little bit before, where I said that I had a really special tangerine bowl, and I was selling some babies from it, and then people were saying, "Wow, these geckos are incredible," and kind of mentioning that. And I took note of that, and also I was seeing it too. I was like, "Wow, there's something really weird going on here. Like, it's not like I have a lot of tangerine bolt stuff, and it just wasn't like quite the same as this." And the original, what I call Monarch male, that kind of started it all, it was hatched in 2021. And I've been breeding him since, but I originally sold some to a few people, and a customer originally is the one that actually came up with the name, like most of my stuff. And I sold it to him, and he was like, this guy had bought, thousands and thousands of dollars in geckos for me. He was buying a lot. It was back during COVID times, kind of. And he was like, this gecko's incredible. Like, he looks exactly like a monarch butterfly. And that's kind of where I
Okay,
thought of
that's
it.
where it came from.
Yeah. So it kind of came from that. And it was, I really, sometimes I don't put it together how special some of the stuff I produce is, maybe. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, but I just kind of, a lot of times I hatch stuff, and I don't look at my stuff as good as I look at others sometimes. I don't know why. But I kind of realized how special this male was and what he was producing, and I noticed like at that time how like well his color was holding into adult or maturity. He was really kind of amazing gecko into maturity, almost looking like he was at like 20, 30 grams, so that's hard to come by, especially like tangerine bolds and other stuff. They usually lose a lot
Yeah.
of their bold color because the tangerine overtakes it. Um, he originally was, so it was just kind of, it's mostly bandit, gecko genetics, and mostly bandit and gecko genetic stuff in
And
him.
then
But
Gecko Genetics.
yeah, he really has very little. He had a little bit of firebolt in him, but very, very little.
Very little.
But it was mostly that. But the thing was with him, he came from a really weird male that was one of those. It was a tangerine bold, but it was a really dark looking tangerine bold male. It was kind of like what I would classify as like that cinnamon look, where the bands were really dark looking and strange. And I don't know what's going on with that male, but his sibling was really light colored. So this one was really, really dark and had like really dark colorations. It was just strange looking. And I had a few hatch out like that, but I bred him to a the female or the dam on this was a tangerine bowl crossed to a the mother or the dam on that one was a bandit crossed to a gem bowl, which so the mother was a gem bowl that was really kind of incredible. I had really deep saturation to the black pigment on her. It's kind of an amazing gecko herself. And so when I paired
Always
these
had
together,
amazing gem bolds. So
what's that?
you've always had amazing gem bolds. Every time I see them, they're very, very nice. So
Thank you. Yeah, actually, a lot of them came. The gem bolds that I got were actually from David's Fine Geckos. I've I'm kind of surprised at how powerful the genetics have been on those. I got them. I don't remember if I got them in trade or I got them when he got out of the hobby, but he had some really nice ones. And those gem bolds they proved to be non-het, which I find really valuable.
no, it's
Um,
super valuable.
and genetically they've been great. Everything I've crossed them to has been kind of incredible. So that's a lot of my gems. I have gems that came from other stuff, but that was some of the nicer stuff I got. But I crossed one of those into that tangerine bold, and then crossed that into the really dark, weird looking tangerine tremper bold. And I mean, all these genetics go back a long time here. So like I even had
Yeah.
to look it up for this. I was like, I kind of forgot what all went into it. But a lot of cool, like, I mean, like some of the a lot of the geckos that went into this many generations back were really high end geckos that were really nice.
Some of
And
that
so,
original blood still, huh?
what's that?
A lot of that original blood still in them.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just stuff that I've been working on here forever. I like haven't bought anything that created it. It wasn't something that like I got last week and crossed and made it.
Yeah.
It's been stuff that's been here for a very long time. I mean, I think those gem bolds were the first, like the last thing that I bought that went into this, and those I think I got like in 2015 or something. So a lot of the stuff is kind of it. That's kind of the point is that Monarch stuff came out of nowhere. It wasn't like something I got and I crossed and it produced this. It was like I've been working on stuff for a very long time. I had two really unique geckos that I paired together, and they created a very unique gecko. And not only that he produces even better geckos than him. So like the original Monarch male is really nice, but the stuff he's been producing, like I don't even know how to describe it. In some ways, it's like some of the it's like really deep tangerine bold, but it almost has like a blushing look to it, almost like a highlighted look that not like a white and yellow or anything like that, but like it almost. It's almost hard to describe, like almost like a koi fish when you see that, like a high quality koi fish and it has that deep saturation to the color.
Mm-hmm.
And like the unique, like the reason why one will go for thousands of dollars and one won't is because of how deep that saturation of color will be like connected to the pigment next to it. So like the color is just intense sometimes on the pigment on it. So I spotted like how nice this was, and people that I was selling to were saying like it was incredible, and I just knew that it was like something that I just couldn't continue to sell because it was unique. It was totally from a different line than anything anything else. It wasn't just a rebranded Firebolt like some of the other stuff out there. It wasn't, I mean, I'm not saying that like unique stuff can't come out of that, but
Yeah.
like it's something different and should be noted when I'm selling to somebody that this is not like just the generic tangerine bold that's out there. And I don't really like to come out with new names and stuff like that. Like I avoid it almost. But kind of at some points I feel it a necessity,
Yeah.
And I
Well,
mean,
yeah, sometimes it's needed when you do the work. It's for those who don't do the work who name it,
yeah,
where it's like, but you do the work, you can name it, dude.
yeah. I mean, I felt like I worked on it for so long, and I mean, I didn't release it right away. I made sure it worked out really good. So I did it. Um, I made sure it was something special before I said that, and I wouldn't put my name behind it if it wasn't. And I mean,
Well,
there's a lot of
it
nice
is.
tangerine bolds out there, and a lot of them come from me too, which is a hard part as well, because a lot of the stuff, you may see like even bangles and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff, like part of it comes from me at least, and a lot of it, um, like I'm not saying it's something more special than that stuff or not, but I'm saying
Yeah.
it's unique in its own
It
way.
has its place. It has its place
Mhm.
because I like it. It's different from Bengal, but I like Monarch and Bengal over Firebolt because, like you
Yeah.
said earlier, you'd lose the bold and then it just kind of washes away. I've only seen very very select Firebolts where I'm like, all right, that looks really good, but every other time I'm not really a big fan of them. But the Bengal and the Monarchs, I think those are going to be the next generation of bold tangs that are going to be killing it and be the base for other stuff. So.
Well, I'm bringing Firebolt back. It's I
All
haven't
right.
focused on it as much lately. That's definitely got to have a rebirth here. I think some of the nicer Firebolts can really compete with that stuff too. They're
I mean,
different, of course,
the
but
Black Knight one is one of them. That Black Knight Firebolt Cross is one of them where I was
yeah,
like, okay, that'll make me come back to it. And then
yeah,
Josiah from Leo's Only, I think he
mm,
produced two really nice ones where I was like, okay. But they're so rare where I'm like, I don't know if I want to work with Firebolt to just barely produce something really, really cool. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
The good thing about if you got pure Firebolts, not some of the crosses, you have they're not het for anything, which is nice. So like
yeah.
I know a lot of the Bengals are het Tremper, which comes from that original Mandarin, as I understand it. So the Mandarin or Gecko genetics, when it first, for people that don't know, the Mandarin is one line of the Gecko genetics. I got one, another breeder in Colorado, designer geckos got the other. The designer gecko one was bred into some other stuff from JMG, and that's where he called one of the babies Mandarin. And I had the other male, and then I bred it into my stuff. Both of them were het for that Nordazir gene, which had the eye pigment. I proved mine out to not have that. So most of the stuff on the other side of that still could be possibly het Nordazir, which nowadays nobody wants that in their stuff. So
That's the NDBE, right?
yeah, it's basically the black eye thing, but the problem is it causes the eyes to be really small typically,
Okay.
and so most people don't want it. It can, I mean, it's hard to like. I was iffy about the whole thing when I first hatched it out of my stuff. I was trying to test it out because I hatched it at the same time as the people in Europe did, and I decided that I wanted to test it out some more and see what was going on because I was getting weird eye sizes and stuff like that. And like, I didn't know if this was just random with the first generation or if this was something that would carry on or, I didn't know what was going on. And so I was testing it out. And in the meantime, they were releasing it and selling it for crazy money. And I felt I was kind of iffy about it the whole time. And then I was like, well, some of the eyes are a little bit smaller. I guess the justification on that doesn't cause any, it doesn't hurt the gecko really. It just maybe hurts their eyesight a little bit. But what's the difference between that and albino? But as time carried on, I kind of felt like the eye sizes kind of were pretty extreme. A lot of them were really small. The eyes would almost be like the squinty eyes, or like the eyeballs themselves would be tiny inside the head
That's
socket. So
weird. That's so weird.
yeah, so I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. And I had a group of gecko genetics that didn't have that. And so I pursued that and I got rid of all the I mean, I still have some for testing, but I got rid of all the Nordazir or NDB stuff. And I don't think most people want it anymore. It's just one of those things where it's not really. It probably
Yeah,
doesn't benefit the gecko's health at all.
that and we probably have enough black eye genes at the moment between Cipher and Eclipse,
Yeah,
Super Snow, and so I still like the black eyes, but maybe people don't. Do you see Joe on the screen? He says he's on the screen, but I don't see him. So
no, it shows he's offline still.
yeah, that's what I told him.
Yeah,
No,
with the Nordazir thing too, it supposedly stopped. I don't know what I forgot what it's called, the name, the scientific term, but that film on the eyes that causes the reflection when you like shine a flashlight into eyes, um, it like got rid of that or something supposedly too. So I don't know everything that went on. Oh, I see Joe now. So
he's
he's
on.
back.
I've been here for about, I don't know,
No,
10
you
minutes,
weren't,
but
dude.
Reese just told me I wasn't on screen.
You
So
haven't been on screen since you left.
yeah, I've been here. So
Hmm.
sorry, guys. I'm even commenting because my internet just went down for a second, but it came right back. That's the cool thing about the program is it keeps going.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
We were
on
just
the.
going over your favorite topic, the tangerine bold stuff.
No, I've been listening to the Monarch part of it. I heard you insult Angel Rosado big time just now. I don't think he's happy with you, brother. But
About what?
that's
It's a friend of ours. He really likes Firebolt and
Yeah.
Bold Tangerine, but he knows I'm not a big Firebolt fan. I mean, I have some crosses and stuff, and it's in stuff, but it's already there. I can't do nothing about it. So,
And speaking of Angel, he actually had a question. I'm going to go ahead and throw it up on the screen here. If I could find it. There's been a lot of chatter going on, but
where?
down here somewhere, I'll read it to you. It just says,
Oh, I
what are
know.
you using to keep track of lineages? For instance, do you use Husbandry Pro, Sheets, Excel, etc.?
It's all in the head, man. I I've always used the same system. I take a lot of notes when I hatch out a gecko on the lineage on the gecko's label itself. It takes a lot of time to write all that out, but I have codes and stuff that I use really quick, and so I usually have multiple generations on there. And once I get back a couple generations, I kind of have it memorized anyway, like what geckos are which.
Okay.
So when I look at my labels, I can kind of tell exactly what stuff is, and then I use um, just sets of pictures. So like I have, hundreds of thousands of pictures that I categorize and I have in files and stuff. And so I can go back to, if you ever look at my ID numbers, the first letter is kind of based on the year. So I choose a letter for that year. So I know which year it's going to. I also have the hatch date on there too, but
Yeah.
I can go back and I can look exactly like if I don't have all the info on that label right there in front of me, I can go back and I can find where it was before and look it up pretty easily. And so it's one advantage if you're doing this full time and doing it all the time. It's like you kind of have it ingrained into your head. If I was going to have a bunch of employees, obviously this wouldn't work. So you'd have to use something like the, Husbandry Pro or something like that. I mean, everybody has a different way of doing it. I'm not saying that that's the wrong way. I don't function that way, and like for me, I have it would be more time. It's to me, I feel like this stuff is all good and fun when you got 50 or 60 geckos, but when you start getting to a couple thousand or whatever, it's a different world.
Yeah, it's a
You
headache.
know, and you're doing it full time. You like kind of you figure it out in your head. And most people of my size would do it that way as well. And I've been in it a long time too, so like most of the stuff I know because it's been going back for generations upon generations. So like I memorize, like I know exactly what M4 is or what F13 was, or
That's insane, dude.
uh, it doesn't matter. Like B706 is one of my favorite firebolts that I use all the time, or FB1 is one of my favorite firebolts, or N836 is one of my favorite firebolts. And like I have all these like on the top of my head at all times.
Gibberish right now.
So if I see that on my label, I know exactly what it is and like over the years what it's done and stuff. And,
Well, I wanted to bring it up to you. We're pushing almost 2 hours, so I didn't want to. We can keep going. I just wanted to bring that up to you, let you know.
Yeah, I'm cool with whatever you guys feel like. If
I'm
we haven't
good with
reached,
time, man. There's still 20 people in the audience, so I figure if we can, we keep going. But it's up to you, John. We'll.
sure, we can. You do a little more and then wrap it up or whatever.
Yeah, I
Time
had, I had
flies.
actually a pretty interesting question. A couple of times that I've talked to you or heard you talk, you've mentioned how like you came out with a name because you were worried that somebody else was going to maybe do it. Has that happened to you? Like, do you? I don't want you to have to throw anybody under the bus or nothing like that, but like, have you ever produced something and then somebody else got a hold of it and it became theirs, or has anything like that ever happened?
I've had people take stuff that I produce and then cross it, and then maybe not like a new line that I was claiming or anything like that, but they would cross something that I produce and then they call it a new line themselves. So I feel like I put like 5, 6 years of work into something or whatever, and then somebody takes it and crosses it to something else, and they're probably producing a nice gecko, but then they will call it a new line or project or whatever. And I get it. It's kind of that's what people want is they want to create their own project. They want it to be quick and fast and fun and like
Yeah.
it's kind of like I don't want to be killjoy on everything either.
Yeah.
But like we got to understand too, this is confusing everybody. Nobody knows what's going on. And I've always taken the mentality of like it's just going to be the marketplace of new projects and lines. Like all of them fade out for the most part. I've heard of so many over the years that are not in existence anymore. I mean, how many people know what a Firefox is anymore? Like
I'd never
I
heard of
mean,
that.
you'll see it sometimes pop up because it was marketed really strong in the beginning, but like things like that, like you just, it'll go away because it doesn't really, it's not something different. But
Yeah.
whereas you see Black Knight obviously made an impact or Firebolt made an impact or whatever it is, it'll make an impact, it'll go forward. But if
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and I'm doing years of work and then I sell something to somebody and they cross it and then they claim it as theirs, no matter who you are, it's going to get frustrating.
I'm actually running this program on Firefox, which is why I went down for like 20 minutes. Yeah, no, I've never heard of that. What was that? Firefox.
I don't really want to throw people under the bus, but it's just basically one that was back in the early,
Okay.
like 2013, 14-ish that was being marketed. Some BS.
The
Yeah, nice mug.
Yeah, dude. I got one too. Cheers.
There you go.
I was gonna say, anybody got their Gecko Boa mug handy?
Yeah, dude.
Man, these
Get
came
this
out.
like
So,
cold.
if anybody doesn't know this about me, I drink a lot of tea. If I sit down at dinner, I order an iced tea. It's my way of staying away from soda. So, and then hot tea. Oh, when it's wintertime, man, hot tea is the shit. So, John, a couple years back, came out with these, and I grabbed two of them because I knew I'd break one, which I have not done. It actually was stolen from me, and by my sister. She took it, but yeah, I still have my other one. And these are 22 ounces. They're perfect. So, in honor of you coming on, I put together what I call Wildcard Tea, and I put it in the description for people if they want to try it. It's really good. If you don't drink it out of this, it's just not going to be the same, just so everybody knows. And in case anybody doesn't know where to go and find that, they are on John's page right here. He's got
And if
them
you
for
want to come
coffee.
to one of Joe's tea parties, you need a gecko mug. Gecko
Yeah,
Boa.
there it is. So when it kicked me out, it dropped this down. So yeah, basically we got one for coffee. Now footed. So footed is obviously the base right here underneath. What was your inspiration for this design? Because I didn't see that before the mug.
So I was buying. There's a really good coffee company that I like a lot, and I'll shout them out here because I love them. It's called Iron Bean Coffee, and they sell. They're kind of a small business, small coffee company. I ordered tons of coffee from this guy for this couple actually. They they sell a lot of these mugs as well. And so I was buying some and I love these mugs. They're like these hand thrown, super heavy duty. I mean, if anybody gets one of these mugs, they know it's super heavyweight. It's a nice hand thrown mug. It's, it's really good quality. It's very different from the standard mug that you get. So I was getting these mugs from them and decided there was a couple that designs that they made that I really liked, and I figured out what company they were ordering from. And so we ordered some from it's a Deneen Pottery. We ordered some from them, and I got the artwork on here is all original. We paid an artist. We paid, I think, 3 artists actually to get to the one we liked. And we got an artist that we liked, and we did everything. So I mean, it was kind of just a fun little side project. It wasn't really making much money, and a lot of people think they're too expensive, but it's really like kind of what I have into it, because it's these mugs are pretty expensive to make, these hand thrown ones that are heavy duty like this, and then they pay an artist and design it all. And I just really I use the big one, and my wife likes that smaller one. So that's kind of what we went with. We went with the ones we like the most.
See, for me, man, we're in a really unique hobby, and there aren't a million leopard gecko things. And so to have a leopard gecko mug, I was like, yeah, I drink a lot of tea.
There you go.
It's not too expensive, $40 for a badass mug that, I mean, it has multi-purpose. You can drink out of it. If somebody breaks into your house, you can kill them with it. I mean, it's
a weapon.
You smash it, you handle to kill them. I think you're safe, man.
I have a lot of these, and the only one I ever broke, I dropped like off my tractor on a rock, and that's the only one that broke. But they pretty much don't break for the most part. They're pretty tough. So, I'm like I said, I'm just we got a lot of them to start, and I haven't really. I thought gecko people would be a little more interested in coffee and mugs, but I still have them available. And I probably won't. Probably won't remake them, so get them while they last.
Heck yeah! Are you going to remake them when you run out, or are you done with them?
No, it was just for fun and see. May make something else from them, or do some different art and do. Probably won't do mugs again. Maybe do something else just for fun. I'm not making money off of them really, so it's not really my time. That's what I was going for. It's just kind of for fun and have something different on the website for people.
There we go. Look at that.
I'm buying a mug tonight.
And you got to honor it now. It's on the internet.
There you go.
That's going to have tea time with Joe. He was making fun of me saying tea time with Joe earlier. So
The funny thing about it is like I ship geckos so much, and like I'm so used to that. And like when I came down to like starting to ship some dry goods and stuff, like the mugs, it was like it felt so foreign. And I was like, didn't know what to do, and it was almost a lot tougher than shipping a gecko to me. Like to start off with, at least. You got to figure it out and like try to find the right rate and stuff. Because a lot of the ship companies, even if you try to do their dry goods rate, it's still too much,
Yeah.
So.
You couldn't have been in the room with me because I'm not joking when I talk about tea. I don't drink a lot of coffee, but tea I drink. And when I saw that mug, and I was just like, I'm a gecko guy. It's a gecko mug. I can't tell you, like, for me, I was like, I'm buying 2. And then I'm going to celebrate when they get here. And I think I made a video. I personally, it just hit home with my personality. So I thought it was awesome, man.
Yeah. I hand inspect everyone, no scratches on them or anything. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, they're handmade. So you get a couple of little blemishes on some of them. So, but
fine by me. I love mine. That's why I keep doing this. It's a pretty cool mug. I appreciate you touching on Monarch, man. A minute ago, a lot of people are curious about that one.
Yeah, I like everything. I'm a perfectionist, and I want to have like a detailed layout with all the ancestry on it and everything. When I make a page on it, and like I really wanted like some geckos that are really representing it well. There's a lot of nice tangerine bowls out there now too, so it's hard to like say, hey, this is completely different. Like it's genetically completely different. Like if you got for instance, a nice Bengal, like that's a really nice gecko, of course, but genetically it's completely different than a Monarch, so you're really outcrossing stuff with that. So like I want to just really like have it laid out really clean and just finding the time to do it too. It's been like I'm so busy with the geckos right now that it's hard to get the time to sit on the internet and do something like that all day. But
a question we ask on here all the time. Actually, it would be kind of interesting to hear your take on it if you have one. You're Mount Rushmore of breeders, whether it be you're from obviously Gecko Boa, so snakes, geckos, but yeah, who would be your four if you were to put them up there? Like people you looked up to the most, besides me, and
well, of course, Joe at Wildcard, and Reese, of course. Like the people that I watched a lot. I guess like when I first started, I was more into boas back then for sure. And so like when I was having dreams about being a breeder and all that stuff, I was more of a boa guy back then. And so the boa file, Jeff Ronnie over there at boa file, he was always like watching his videos and stuff was a big inspiration. Like some of the pet shop guys that I was working with back then too, like there's Kyle Frost that like, he doesn't really do leopard geckos at all anymore, or I guess he breeds some wholesale stuff, but some of those guys back then were kind of inspirations because I'd go to the pet shop and like these guys just knew everything about reptiles and stuff, and it was kind of cool, thinking about boa people. Who else back then? There was Vin Russo back then. Like I always thought, like that was kind of the way. Like he did it right, He had the boa book, the boa constrictor book too, that I read quite a bit. If you're going into like the geckos and stuff, obviously like there was Tremper, and when I first started too, like I really looked up to Matt Bronick at Sasabeck. Like obviously the video, like I think like a lot of people don't understand, like his videos back then were like. Yeah. They clued people in on how like to breed, like to do it like in a different scale. And like I don't do anything like that anymore. But he let out all the secrets, and let people know how it was done, and so that was a big inspiration. So like I was all, a lot of people that want to start breeding, that's the way they go. They watch all those old videos and him doing that stuff. And so he's a friend to this day. So a good guy. Let's think obviously Ron Tremper is a big inspiration, from all the stuff he produced. He set the standard in the hobby for a while, I guess. I don't know, man. There's a lot of people I really looked up to. There's like I was into a lot of the stuff that I kind of learned to think differently. I think about like with reptiles in general. Like when I started work with like more obscure stuff, and then I also worked with some of the dwarf monitors, the Varanus and stuff. And so I was in the Varanus.net like forums and like going through and listening to Frank Reitz in there, and the way he like kind of thought about husbandry differently, and the way he put things, like people would come in and you got to have it this way, and he'd be like, no, you're like, he was kind of an a-hole in that in the forums, but like so knowledgeable, and like the way he laid things out and like taught me to think differently. I know. Like he's fallen off the map, and I think he screwed some people at the end. But John Boone back in the day, like with the obscure gecko stuff, and like really was a big inspiration. Like all the cool stuff that he was keeping, and he taught me a lot. He actually took me in quite a bit. I mean, I was buying a lot, but he didn't have to do a lot of the like how much he explained to me about stuff and like taught me and really made me think about things differently. And then. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's another guy. He likes to stay anonymous, but there's a guy named Zach, and if he's watching ever, he knows who he is in Colorado, that really helped me out too. Kind of the ultimate gecko guru, but he's one of those guys that doesn't like to be public too much. But there's a lot of gecko guys that are more in the obscure stuff that I really learned a lot, and like I kind of I was taught quite a bit from that. And then there's some of the guys that originally brought in some of the Angramanu that I really looked up to that were overseas. And, I learned quite a bit from them as well. But a little bit of here and there from everybody.
That's how you
Pretty
do it, dude. You got to learn from everybody.
No, no.
Speaking of overseas, it's I wonder if we'll ever have fresh wild type stuff coming in. I don't know. We'll ever get back to that. Um, you were around when that was still happening, right?
Yeah, I was kind of like one of the first people in the U.S. to get a lot of that stuff. And the first time I didn't really pursue that was with Sapiensis. It was just the people in Europe that had it, like, they had like 50 babies, and then they wanted to sell me like three of them for like $6,000 or something. It was just like,
Isn't that the new one? I think that's a new one, right?
I mean, it's kind of new. I've known about it since like 2013, but it's like, you
Well, you
know,
don't count, dude. You know all of them.
yeah, it was. Well, I was serious. I would spend like hours and hours every night, like looking at pictures of like. I would just search leopard gecko India and like random pictures that people would take or local biologists would take. And I had friends. I actually knew a guy that was the guy that did like that big phylogenetic study on Eublepharis that had to do with all the Angermanu and different subspecies. I have it linked on my website under the pure species stuff.
Yeah.
But he's from India, and like I've talked to him quite a bit about that stuff. And um, yeah, the Sapiensis was always really intriguing. I think the ones in the hobby or from the Sapira Tiger Reserve, and they're not quite as interesting looking as some of them that are from the Melgot Tiger Reserve. And said, like, you got to understand, almost over every hill and every valley in these regions, like the geckos can look a little different just on like local populations and stuff. So even though you have like a species that's different from Fuscus or Hardwicke, it 100 miles over, it can look completely different. Maybe a separate subspecies, or maybe it's just, the same species, but just, different form. If you think you can breed a nice tangerine in a couple years, from some whatever tangerines, like you got to think that, hundreds of thousands of years between these different locations are going to create some
Yeah.
differences,
Yeah.
So I saw some that were, taking wild ones that were taking pictures of. I don't know if it's just because they were young or because like they were skinnier and thinner animals, but they really looked unique. The ones in a hobby are cool, of course, but they look,
Yeah.
they were not $6,000 cool, especially when like there was hundreds of babies out there already. I was just like, nah, not going to do that.
Yeah, one more year and they would be half that price or even less than that.
Yeah, and I guess they're having problems producing males, just like Fuscus and Hardwicke too. Like the males have always been an issue with both of those species, and
Yeah.
I don't know what it is exactly. Some people say that you need a female. They call them the male producer females, where they actually produce males more for whatever reason. But I've never been able to consistently produce males with those. With the Angermanu, it's like they're not even temperature sex dependent. They just produce either or. Typically a little bit more male, but like I'd incubate them at 79 and they would be equal ratios, 70 or 88 and equal ratios. Now I just incubate them all at 84 and they just all come out basically 50-50. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That's good to know. If I'm ever going to incubate, I'll just keep that in my head, 84.
Female incubator. Yeah.
I got one last one for you, man. Obviously, we can't do this forever. You're not that old. I believe we're the same age. So I was wondering, how many more years of this do you think you have in you?
I mean, I think the hardest thing in this hobby is like if you have to move or you have to build a facility. Like those are the pinnacles of difficulty in this hobby. So I think I'll always be doing this as long as I can get up and walk around. I'll be doing it to some extent. So maybe a lot smaller scale when I'm 60 or 70, but
That's awesome.
I don't imagine never doing it at this point.
That's some of the best news I've gotten in a while, man. That's awesome to know
Yeah,
that.
no plans on quitting. I mean, this is I've been in it for the long haul for a long time, and I've been through the hardest times. There's definite burnout, and there's coming back from burnout, and there's figuring out ways to deal with that, and keep other hobbies going.
Yeah.
I'm into other stuff too. That's kind of similar in some ways. Like I'm into fig trees now, and
Yeah, I was about to say you breed trees, don't you?
it's just I'm at the entry level of that. I don't say that I'm doing it like full time or anything like that, but
Yeah,
it's something I want to get into. It's fun, and like fig
I'd love
trees.
to bring you back on here, and actually, I want to talk about burnout with a couple of people, but you're one of them.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'd like to touch a little bit more on the fig trees and stuff like that too, like hobbies and things you like to do. Um, Dude, I really appreciate you offering to come on here and talk geckos with us. It's been 2 hours, so
yeah.
that's actually really great. Hopefully, we kept you entertained. I know the comment section's been going pretty crazy. Uh, yeah, so thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys. And yeah, we'll do it again soon for sure.
It
Look
was
forward to it.
definitely a good way to start off the year. Good podcast, good
Yeah,
guests, good energy, good information. So
thank you.
hopefully this year we see a lot of change in labeling. Hopefully we see a lot of dope
Yeah,
products coming out of other people's projects, yours, ours, everybody. So
absolutely.
I got high hopes for this year.
And just
Yeah.
so everybody knows, all of John's links are in the description. Obviously, you can find his store, his animals. Everybody already knows these things, but if you don't, grab a mug and bring it on the next time we'll have you on the show. And if you have your mug, Reese will give you a free animal. That's real right there.
Good
If we
deal.
did not get to your comment, we tried, but obviously there was a lot of good content here, so we were doing everything we could. Thank you, everybody, for being here and hanging out, watching the Power Hour with Reese and I. And last time, man, thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you.
You
Appreciate
guys
it.
hang tight for 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and end broadcast.
Good night.
Good night.